Good evening. This is Eswatini TV News at 8. I am Natalie Sitola alongside Makambison Kambule. First up, here's a look at our headlining stories. The Prime Minister Eswatini has arrived in Dubai to represent His Majesty King Mswati III during COP28. The Office of the Whole Regional Administrator has officially introduced the Minister of Tinkundla and Administrations Khumbuzo Dlamini to Hoho Chiefs and Bantwaba Nkosi. The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development says government is now prioritizing Sustainable Development Goal number 8, which will enable the attainment of the rest of the SDGs by the year 2030. And now the news in detail. The Prime Minister Eswatini Dlamini has arrived in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates to represent His Majesty King Mswati III during COP28.
The Prime Minister arrived through the Dubai International Airport here at the United Arab Emirates. The Prime Minister is in Dubai to represent His Majesty King Mswati III during the COP28 Climate Change Summit. The conference has been held annually since the first UN Climate Agreement in 1992. The COP conferences are intended for governments to agree on policies to limit global temperatures rises and adapt to impacts associated with climate change. In early 2021, the United Arab Emirates offered to host the 2023 event, and in November 2021, the Prime Minister and Vice President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, announced that the UAE would be hosting the 2023 conference. It was the second time in 2 years that the conference was held in the Middle East, and the third time it was hosted by a member of OPEC after Qatar in 2012 and Indonesia in 2007. The United Arab Emirates is one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world due to its very hot and humid climate. The observed annual average mean surface air temperature in the UAE has risen by 1.27% degrees Celsius between 1990 and 2022. According to the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, the UAE is making efforts to reduce emissions in many ways across different sectors of its economy. The UAE pledged to reduce carbon emissions to net zero by 2050, the first Middle Eastern government to make such a pledge. It was the first country in the region to sign the Paris Agreement in 21st September 2016. The country has invested $50 billion into clean energy internationally and promised an additional $50 billion by 2030. In November 2022, the UAE agreed to partner with the United States to invest another $100 billion in clean energy. President Joe Biden and Pope Francis are expected to attend the United Nations Climate Change Conference. The Prime Minister will represent His Majesty alongside the Minister for Tourism, Jane Mkonda, and the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Polile Shakantu. For Eswatini TV News, I am Lincoln Gule in Dubai.
The Office of the Hoho Regional Administrator has officially introduced the Minister of Tinkundla and Administrations Khumbuzo Dlamini to Hoho Chiefs and Bantwaba Nkosi. Representing the RA, Princess Tanzile was the Hoho Regional Secretary, Sibusiso Dlamini, who urged Chiefs and Bantwaba Nkosi to support the Minister and his ministry as they have been entrusted with this national responsibility by His Majesty the King.
When introducing the minister, the regional secretary Sibusiso Dlamini said it is important for chiefdoms to work closely with Tinkundla, as that is where national development is rooted. The minister said his ministry is committed in assisting the country in as far as chiefdoms development is concerned. He said this could, however, be achieved only through collaboration with chiefs and Bantwaba Nkosi.
Kubabelo yokuthi ingonyama yemhlaba ikhulumile sonke sivile emaswati akhulumile sibayeni dinengi tindlu emaswati lakhale ngato bekuthi ngakuthi vele siyawuthi sisebenza selitiko nathi licondzene nathi Tinkundla asisho ukuthi vele siyatinikela la ekutheni sitawubambisana live la ekutheni besifunye kona kwenteke nekubambisana nawo baletikhulu nabantu benkosi ikakhulu ngoba vele sowushintsho lomele umphathisifundza lalo ukuthi konke nentuthuko nawo konke kukhungelwe kubo bobabe nangaye bobabe sabashiya ngemuva angeke sifikile la singaya khona.
Chiefs and Bantwa Bengosi took the opportunity to urge the government to provide sufficient resources for service delivery at community level, such as allocating a government truck to each chiefdom. They also called for the constitution to be unveiled to the nation so as to familiarize themselves with it. Reporting for Eswatini TV News is Bongos Makakula at Pittsburgh.
The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development, Thabisile Mlangeni, says government is now prioritizing Sustainable Development Goal number 8, which, when fully achieved, will enable the attainment of the rest of the goals by the year 2030. Thabisile Mlangeni has said this during an interview with Eswatini TV at the induction workshop for members of the 12th Parliament, which is being held at the Happy Valley Hotel in Eswatini.
On day 4 of the Parliamentarians' induction workshop, the participants were taken through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which the country has to attain by the year 2030.
Leminyaka lemi-7 besele yini lesingakwenda sisheshe ukhona leli siwubukile lokho ukuthi uma singaconza lo umgomo wokukhulisa umnotho wekwakha amathuba emisebenzi lolokunye kutabe sekuyasebenzeka nako ngoba lokhu kunemthelela lomkhulu kuyo yonke leminye imigomo lengisebenzile. Lokunye lobe sikwethula kubahlonishwa ukuthi bakwadi basangena ukuthi sine National Development Plan luhlelo lokuthuthukisa lelive lolukhava iminyaka lesihlanu.
Clerk to Parliament Benedict Gaba says, by virtue of their office, parliamentarians are duty-bound to ensure that the country attains the Sustainable Development Goals.
It's very important for members of Parliament, more especially that they are new in office, to understand or to take the National Development Plan as part of their Bible, as they are coming from different constituencies. So they'll understand the priorities of government, and also they'll hold government accountable to what it has been prioritized in the development plan.
The Principal Secretary Thabisile Mlangeni also explained that more than 80% of the kingdom's population has access to electricity power, which makes the kingdom one of the best in providing this service. On the news, I'm Mbongwa Dube in Babane.
The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Public Service, Sipho Tabete, says his ministry is not responsible for change of some information, especially surnames of married civil servants, on the government system. Tabete says one of the contributing factors to this mishap is the repeal of the graded tax law, which was effected by government a few months ago. Tabete was speaking during a press conference at the ministry's headquarters in Babane.
The repeal of this piece of legislation has therefore compelled the Ministry of Public Service to comply by updating the system. This process is carried out automatically using personal identity numbers. This update entails integrating the Human Resource Management Information System with the Population Register. The custodian of the Population Register is the Ministry of Home Affairs. The integration of the system has revealed that some information presented by public servants to the Ministry of Home Affairs does not tally with information contained in the Human Resource Management Information System. The Ministry appreciates the inconvenience caused to those affected and wishes to extend its profound apologies. All affected individuals are accordingly advised to liaise with the Ministry of Home Affairs for any assistance in relation to their personal identity information. An update into the population register system will automatically update the information appearing in our human resource management information system.
The Ministry of Health's intervention of launching an antenatal care unit at the Mbabane Government Hospital has saved lives. Deputy Director of Health, Dr. Bongiwe Malinga, says Prematurely Commemoration Day allows the ministry to reflect on the interventions by government, which include a partnership with the University of Pretoria that will help health facilities in different communities to provide health services for healthy preterm babies. Dr. Bongiwe was speaking during the commemoration held in Mbabane.
The Minister of Health has made a difference in restoring joy to families with preterm babies. Speaking during the commemoration of the World Prematurely Day, Dr. Bongiwe Malinga shares some of the remarkable interventions that government has put in place to serve prematurely babies.
It was to introduce a neonatal ICU, which is an ICU for newborn babies, where newborn babies that are sick and those who are preterm are taken care of so that they grow very well. We know that preterm babies, most of the times they struggle with breathing, they struggle with their lungs, they struggle with their heart, they struggle with suckling. They are usually very, very fragile and delicate. But because of this unit that was established 2 years ago here in Mbabane government, we have seen a great improvement on the outcomes of those babies.
Dr. Eunice Ruhida, the head of antenatal care unit at the Mbabane Government Hospital, says their job was made easier by the launch of the antenatal care unit.
The Ministry of Health, with partnership with UNICEF and UK Aid, opened the first neonatal ICU in the country. That made a huge difference that I cannot explain right now.
Pumzile Mamba, a mother, says her child was 565 grams and they were discharged when the child was plus 2 kg.
Mbabane government ngifike ngasitakala kakhulu because the mangifika njena umfana beka weya 565 grams.
Mamba says she received all the necessary assistance at the Mbabane Government Hospital. The government of Eswatini's health interventions are in line with Sustainable Development Goal number 3, which speaks to access to health services for all. Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni, Vumingo Sinzinisa, Mbabane.
The Ministry of Education and Training's acting Principal Secretary Nani Kimnisi says government wishes to take the Elderly Childhood Care and Development Program, which is for minors under 6 years, to the rural areas of the country. Nisi said this during the launch of the findings of the ECCDE in the country.
The research on early childhood care and development was carried out for over 3 years at Kamsunduza. The Ministry of Education and Training Acting Principal Secretary Nani Kimnisi says ECCDE plays a huge role in children's brain development.
The ministry will be looking at increasing access to ECCD in rural public institutions through supporting the inception of grade 0 in more than 300 rural public primary schools. Indeed, it is one step at a time, we hope that there will come a time when government will consider making ECCD, that is to say grade 0, part of the support given under the free primary education program.
The University of Eswatini Vice-Chancellor, Professor Justice Twala, says some of the findings of the research includes policy matters that need to be addressed as soon as possible.
While all parents expressed a strong desire to send their children to preschool, there were a number of challenges they are faced with. The high cost of preschool education in a context of high unemployment and inequality limit access of children to ECE.
The Ministry of Education and Training Early Childhood Care and Development Inspector, Dr. Tutu Hlope, says currently there are over 1,800 qualified teachers with diplomas and certificates in ECCDE.
Most children in Eswatini reach primary school age lacking essential basic skills for school readiness, which is the brain stimulation, which is the manipulative skills, which is early literacy, as well as early numeracy. This is due to the lack of access to ECCD services, which are remaining low among children mainly from the poor rural communities.
Most speakers during the event, including Dr. Christiana McMillan from the University of Edinburgh, that assisted in the research, speak about the importance of safety in the ECCDE centers. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, with Themba Shabangwe Zulwini.
His Majesty's Correctional Services Commissioner General Phindile Lamakhosi Dlamini says inmates and HMCS staff get 100% healthcare services. Dlamini said this during the World AIDS Day commemoration by the institution.
On Thursday at the Matapa Correctional Staff College Sports Ground, His Majesty Correctional Services, together with their partners, hosted their annual AIDS Day commemoration. Speaking during the event, Commissioner General Phindile Dlamini thanked the partners for sticking together with the institution at any time when it comes to matters of HIV/AIDS.
We are about to finish our wellness policy. Officers.
She further commits that the institution will support all programs the country has on issues of HIV/AIDS. The Minister of Health, Manzini Acting Regional Matron, Samuel Swenzinisa, says it is important for stakeholders to look into addressing issues of key populations. On the other hand, Nature Programs Coordinator Sidney Ngambule says His Majesty Correctional Services introduced many initiatives in the fight against HIV/AIDS.
Siltiko nathi sithi asiqhubeke to thoroughly profile our service consumers to ensure that we provide responsive services.
Very comprehensive interventions lewentile ibelato tibhedlela yawenda ema prevention services yawenda ema treatment care and support yakwenda yabanakekela nje bonke abantu labagulako noma ngangiluphi ihlobo yize bala correctional.
Representing Unites is Sindiso Dlamini. He applauds Eswatini for being able to reduce HIV/AIDS by 70% since 2010. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, visual source from His Majesty Correctional Services Communications Department.
The National Disaster Management Agency has issued an update on El Nino for November 2023. Indication shows that El Nino has transitioned from moderate El Nino conditions towards stronger El Nino conditions.
The El Nino condition has developed rapidly since winter, reaching a level consistent with a moderate El Nino by September 2023. The National Disaster Management Agency's report states that El Nino ENSO was valued around 1.3 in October 2023, while the current value is around 1.5 in November 2023. The report suggests an intensified warming of the sea surface, which could have significant implication for global weather patterns. The update reveals that most constituencies maintained normal conditions, indicating a consistent rainfall. These areas with more rains is likely to be attributed to the heavy rainfall experienced in the country over the last month. The report says that the overall environmental and atmospheric conditions highlight the importance of regular monitoring and timely interventions in areas showing increased drought stresses, ensuring effective disaster management. The report further shows that El Nino phenomenon intensifies across the globe. The Kingdom of Eswatini faces paradoxical situation of abundant rainfall and extreme temperatures, especially in the Lubombo region. The report says the recent downpours have replenished the surface water resources, especially the 5 major dams in the country, which are above 90% of their storage capacity. However, the prevailing high temperatures may increase the rate of evaporation and reduce water availability in the long run. For Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni, Mbabane.
In news making headlines around the world, Israel and Hamas on Thursday agreed to extend a temporary truce by another day, just minutes before it was set to expire. This has been said by Qatar, which has been mediating between the two sides.
Negotiations on extending the truce went down to the wire, with last-minute disagreements over hostages to be freed by Hamas in exchange for another day of a halt in fighting. The Qatari Foreign Ministry said the truce was being extended under the same terms as in the past, under which Hamas has released 10 Israeli hostages per day in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners. Former United States Secretary of the State Henry Kissinger has died at 100 years. Henry, a controversial Nobel Prize winner and diplomatic powerhouse whose service under 2 presidents left a memorable mark on the U.S. foreign policy, died on Wednesday. This has been said in a statement by Kissinger associates. He died at his home in Connecticut. He had been active past his centenary, attending meetings in the White House, publishing a book on leadership styles, and testifying before a Senate committee about the nuclear threat posed by North Korea. In July 2023, he made a surprise visit to Beijing to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. Reporting for Eswatini TV, Ampendulo Kumbi, visuals sourced from France 24 and DW.
And now we'll have a look at our financial indicators.
Standard Bank. It can be.
And moving on to sports, national team Sihlangu Semnikati has dropped in the latest FIFA rankings, where they are now ranked 149th out of 210 nations under the FIFA in the world. National team head coach Dominic Kunene says the rankings are a clear message that they need to work hard in the future in order to improve their rankings.
National team Sihlangu Semnikati has dropped in the latest FIFA rankings, where they are now ranked 149th out of 210 nations under FIFA. Sihlangu Semnikati's recent rankings in October this year saw the nations standing at 146th in position. During the entire Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers and the World Cup qualifiers this year, Sihlangu did not win any single game. Best ever rankings for Sihlangu in the history saw them ranking 88th in the world, while their worst saw them ranking 190. National team head coach Dominic Kunene says the rankings are a clear message that they clearly need to work hard in the future in order to improve their rankings. World champions are Argentina, who still tops the rankings, while first African nation is Morocco, who are 13th. South Africa are ranked 66th, while neighboring countries Lesotho are above Sihlangu, where they are ranked 148. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabrice Msonera, Mbabane.
Tekball national team has crashed out of the ongoing Tekball World Cup in Thailand in the last 32 stage of the tournament. The association has applauded the team for a well representation, considering that it's the country's first appearance at the Games.
Tekball national team has crashed out of the ongoing Tekball World Cup in Thailand in the last 32 stage of the tournament. The country is represented by Siposetu Skonze and Menzi Mnisi, with the head coach being Naomi DuPont. The team was taking part of their first ever World Cup since the arrival of the sport in the country back in 2019. During the category of singles, Siposetu Skonze failed against Japan and India, while in doubles, the duo managed to defeat China but failed against Hungary and Czech Republic. The Eswatini Tekball Association has applauded the team for a well representation, considering the fact that it is the country's first appearance at the Games. The association is optimistic that It is with hope that the country will do better in all Africa Games in March next year in Ghana. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabiso Msonera, pictures sourced from the Eswatini Techball Federation.
Eswatini Football Association's Chief Executive Officer Frederick Mgometuli says it is within the Federation's mind to see the other two regions of the country, being Shiseleni and Lubombo, having schools taking part of the Football Association's Under-20 Women League.
Eswatini Football Association Chief Executive Officer Frederick Mgometuli says it is within the Federation's mind to see the other two regions of the country, being Shiseleni and Lubombo, having schools taking part of the Football Association Under-20 Women League.
Ngeke sigcine ngalo 12 litawuchubeka tingeteke kodwa isikole kufuna ukuthi sikhone ukuthi sibe nayo ibhola yabomake kulolu hlola lekudlalisa ibhola.
Lokutawenda ukuthi siclose le gap ukuthi sigcine singabi nemamali abakhona ukucompete in Africa, even in the world.
In prize presentation of this year's tournament, Hillside High School were the eventual champions and walked away with an amount of 4,000 emalangeni.
Umfana nontombazana akangagcini ngekuthi kuthiwe umuntu lo wasekhishini naye kufanele ukuthi abe active so that batawuhlala ba healthy.
Ngwane Park High School came second with a package of 3.5 emalangeni, while Elangeni High School was third with a package of 3,000 emalangeni. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabiso Msonera, Mbawani.
That's all for now. Before I go, here's a reminder of our top stories. The Prime Minister Eswatini has arrived in Dubai to represent His Majesty King Mswati III during COP28. The Office of the Whole Regional Administrator has officially introduced the Minister of Tinkundla and Administrations, Khumbuzo Dlamini, to Hoho Chiefs and Bantwaben Nkosi. The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development says government is now prioritizing Sustainable Development Goal number 8, which will enable the attainment of the rest of the SDGs by the year 2030. And with that, it's a wrap. I am Lamtiane, leaving you with the weather update from myself and the team. Many thanks for your company. Take care.
More with Spa.